Hello and welcome to the Presidential Daily Brief for January 25th, 2017. This is the Presidential Daily Brief number 5. For our first news of the day, the Vice President, Mike Pence, announced Andrea Thompson as National Security Advisor. There isn't a whole lot more to say about that. It is a nomination. We're not really going to bother talking about people until they are being confirmed. And further on the story, you can go and look at the information about the entire vice presidential staff. So if you are interested in who is a part of the vice presidential staff, I encourage you to take a look at it. A memorandum was released by the White House discussing immediate actions and initial guidance for federal civilian hiring freeze. This is to modify the civilian hiring freeze previously done and mostly discusses what to do about job offers and appointments prior to January 22nd, 2017, or people with confirmed start dates before or after February 22nd, 2017. And now we get into the big one. The executive order for border security and immigration enforcement improvements. In Section 2, which is where we start getting past the preamble, the policy of the executive branch is to A. Secure the southern border of the United States through the immediate construction of a physical wall on the southern border, monitored and supported by adequate personnel so as to prevent illegal immigration, drug and human trafficking, and acts of terrorism. Detain individuals apprehended on suspicion of violating federal or state law, including federal immigration law, pending further proceedings regarding those violations. Expedite determinations of apprehended individuals' claims of eligibility to remain in the United States. Remove promptly those individuals whose legal claim to remain in the United States has been lawfully rejected after any appropriate civil or criminal sanctions have been imposed, and cooperate fully with states and local law enforcement in enacting federal-state partnerships to enforce federal immigration priorities, as well as state monitoring and detention programs that are consistent with federal law and do not undermine federal immigration priorities. In Section 4, it gets into more detail about the physical border wall and grants the Secretary the power to immediately take the following steps to obtain complete operational control, as determined by the Secretary, of the southern border. In accordance with existing law, including the Secure Fence Act and IIRIRA, take all appropriate steps to immediately plan, design, and construct a physical wall along the southern border, using appropriate materials and technology to most effectively achieve complete operational control of the southern border. Identify, and to the extent permitted by law, allocate all sources of federal funds for the planning, designing, and construction of a physical wall along the southern border. Project, develop, long-term funding requirements for the wall, including preparing congressional budget requests for the current and upcoming fiscal years. In Section 9, there is a foreign aid reporting requirement. The head of each executive department and agency shall identify and quantify all sources of direct and indirect federal aid or assistance to the government of Mexico on an annual basis over the past 5 years, including all bilateral and multilateral development aid, economic assistance, humanitarian aid, and military aid. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the head of each executive department and agency shall submit this information to the Secretary of State. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the Secretary shall submit to the President a consolidated report reflecting the levels of such aid and assistance that has been provided annually over each of the past 5 years. And in Section 14, for government transparency, the Secretary shall, on a monthly basis and in a publicly available way, report statistical data on aliens apprehended at or near the southern border using a uniform method of reporting by all Department of Homeland Security components, in a format that is easily understandable by the public. Today, President Trump approved disaster declarations for counties of Mississippi and Oregon due to severe storms, tornadoes, straight-line winds, and flooding during the period of January 20th to 21st, 2020. President Donald Trump has nominated Philip Bilden as Secretary of the Navy. And our last piece of news for today, President Trump announced the White House compliance team. I'm not going to go into great detail about this, but the announcement does discuss the people that will be on the White House compliance team and goes into some background detail about their qualifications. Thank you for listening to the Presidential Daily Brief for January 25th, 2017, number 5.